Solving quadratic equations, non-factoring methods, quadratic formula. Welcome to Mark's Math Methods. In order to use this method, the equation needs to be written in standard form and proper descending order. We're going to identify the numbers and then plug and chug with a formula. An engineer's delight. Examples. 2x squared minus 9 equals 8x. I need to rewrite it so it says 2x squared minus 8x minus 9 equals 0. That's standard form, proper descending order. Here's another one. We just move the 12 over. So just put them in, rewrite them in proper descending order. And this may not always be the fastest way, but it will always get you to the answer. A lot of times factoring is better. Completing the square might be quicker. Square root method if there's no linear term. But the quadratic formula will always get you to the correct answer. It may not be the fastest. Standard form. Ax squared plus bx plus c. Quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. It's a formula you need to memorize. So you just say it out loud. Every time you use it, write it down so that you'll memorize it as you're working the problems. You'll need to memorize it. Step 1, know the numbers. What is A? What is B? What is C? They're always plus in the standard form, so you need to, if they are negative, the minus signs need to go with it. So then we're going to write out the formula with spaces. This is how I do it. It helps me from making common mistakes with the minus signs. So I'm going to write it as negative parentheses, which is the b, plus or minus the square root of parentheses b squared minus 4 parentheses, which is the a, parentheses with c, all over 2 parentheses, which is the a. So I write it out with the spaces, and then I fill the spaces in. Plug in the numbers, and then chug out the arithmetic. The algebra is knowing the formula and what goes where. The rest of it is arithmetic. So let's try a problem. First, I need to put it in standard form. So I have to bring the 8x over between the 2x squared and the minus 9. There's the reminder on the quadratic formula. I always want to write it down at the beginning of every problem. That's one way to memorize it. Even if you're copying it, you're still writing it down. Step 1, know the numbers. So I need to know A, I need to know B, and I need to know C. So A is 2, B is negative 8, C is negative 9. Write out the formula with spaces. Plug in the numbers. A is 2, B is negative 8, C is negative 9. And now it's arithmetic. So we just plugged in the numbers. And now we get to check out the arithmetic. I'll do that on a different screen. So I'm going to do the opposite of negative 8, which is 8. I'm going to do negative 8 squared, which is 64. Then negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times a negative 9 is a positive 72. And on the bottom, 2 times 2 is 4. Then I'm going to add the stuff underneath the radical sign. 64 plus 72 is 136. So now I have 8 plus or minus the square root of 136 all over 4. I need to break down the 136 to see what I get, and it turns out to be 2 root 33. So 8 plus or minus 2 root 33 all over 4. Now I need to simplify this, but I'm going to break it up into parts. So what I'm really doing is, so 8 over 4 becomes 2, and 2 over 4 becomes a half. Let's try another one. Rewrite it in standard form. Quadratic formula, I write down. Know the numbers. Write it out in spaces. Plug the numbers in. A is 5, B is negative 15, and C is 12. That was plug in the numbers. And now we're going to check out the arithmetic. Negative 15 is positive 15. Negative 15 squared is 225. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Times 12 is negative 240. All over 10. Because that's 2 times 5. 25 minus 240 is negative 15. So 15 plus or minus the square root of negative 15 all over 10. Negative 15 is just I root 15. All you can do is pull out the minus sign as an I. Now, when you've got imaginary, they definitely want you to separate it out. So 15 over 10 plus or minus I root 15 over 10. And I can reduce the 15 over 10 to 3 halves. You may have to write it as 3 halves plus I root 15 all over 10, or and then 3 halves minus I root 15 over 10, or you can leave it as a plus minus, depending on how the answer is requested to be expressed. Let's do a final problem. So I move the 12x over. I find A, B, and C. I write it out with spaces. I plug in the numbers. A is 1, B is 12, C is negative 4. So I get negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 144 plus 16 all over 2. Underneath the root is 160. And that breaks down as 4 root 10. And I can separate it. And I can reduce both those fractions. Negative 6 plus or minus 2 root 10. Now here's a tricky one. There was no linear term. I needed to put it in there. And that's really the only thing you have to be worried about, is you have to make sure that you have the values. In proper descending order means there has to be a linear term, or there has to be a constant at the end too, if that one's missing as well. This one's pretty straightforward because that linear term not being there makes the b turn into a 0. I hope the presentation was helpful. Thumbs up, subscribe, comment. And if you have any problem types you'd like me to demonstrate, there's my address.